We will now begin Boynton Beach's Community Redevelopment Agency's board meeting today, Wednesday, September 27, 2017 at 6:31 p.m. Would everyone please rise for an invocation from Board Member Casello, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father, please make our decisions up here the right ones for the better of Boynton Beach. Let's pray for the people and the souls down there in Puerto Rico. Hopefully that they recover quickly, and that our president sees fit to send them some aid to help that happen. And amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Grant.
Here.
Vice Chair Pat.
Here.
Mr. McCray.
She sent me a text message that she is on her way. Okay, we have additions, deletions, and corrections to the agenda. I've been asked by the attorney for the owner of 480 Ocean Avenue regarding their purchase and sale agreement for old business. I'd like to put that on item G. May I have a motion to do that?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Is there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Agenda is approved. Moving on to legal.
Nothing this evening.
Okay, good. Next, we have disclosure of conflicts, contacts, and relationships for items presented to the CRA Board on agenda. Vice Chairman Katz, do you have anything to say?
Just that I have a meeting scheduled, I believe, for Monday coming up with Habitat for Humanity, but that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
That's it.
Board Member Casello?
Only that we met, and I think we all did a one-on-one with the developers of the Town Square project.
Yep.
That's it.
And nothing for me. Moving on to announcements and awards.
Good evening, Tracy Smith Coffee, Marketing and Business Development. I am here to introduce to you Dan Good from the FFEA Association. He's the board chair, and he's going to present the awards to the board. After he presents the awards, we're going to do a quick photo shoot, so I'll ask you guys to stand up on the dais, and then staff will stand in front of the dais for the photo shoot.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you all for allowing me the time tonight to be here. As Tracy said, my name's Dan Good. I'm the current board chair for Florida Festival Event Association. I'm also local. My paying job, which I like a little bit more right now, is I'm the event director for Sunfest, so I've had the opportunity to see what Mike and his team has done throughout the years. You guys put some great events on, as it's evident with these awards. Is that me? I just wanted to kind of put in context for you guys in terms of the competition and the judging process overall. There's 3 different budget levels, 16 different categories within those. So as I've done a few of these, if an organization would win 2 or 3 awards, that's very impressive. As you can see, I'm here tonight to present 9, so that's very, very impressive. So I'm going to go through and just kind of read through these. So the first award tonight is the Boynton Beach Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash radio ad, first place. The Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash website, first place. The Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash promotional mailer, first place. The Holiday Tree Lighting and Concert outdoor ad signage, first place. Annual report, event recap / annual report, second place. Blarney Bash outdoor ad stage signage, second place. The Boynton Beach Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash PR / media campaign, third place. Holiday tree lighting and concert outdoor ad billboard, third place. So of all these of all the events throughout the state, we had over 400, close to 450 submissions. And again, quite an accomplishment. Great job by Mike and his whole team. And just proud to be here tonight with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to do the photo shoot now.
We're just going to, do you need to sit? You want to take these guys' seats?
We're gonna
Or you want to stand?
stand, yeah, I think it'll be.
I also want to add, we just found out, and this will be on next month's agenda, that we won a FRA award for Outstanding New Building Project, 500 Ocean. And also we won 8 international festival and event awards, which you will also see in your next agenda for October. So we're doing really good.
Tracy, does any of these awards come with any kind of a cash?
No, sorry.
Thank you, Tracy.
Next, we have movies in the park.
Good evening, Mercedes Coppin, Special Events Coordinator. On Friday, October 6th, the CRA will kick off its special event season with Movies in the Park. This free event will take place at the Ocean Avenue Amphitheater starting at 7:30. Please note that on the cover sheet, the time was listed at 8:30. That was an error. The website and the Facebook page do reflect the correct start time. The feature film will be Descendants 2, which is rated PG and categorized as an action, fantasy, adventure. Descendants 2 is a newer pirate movie and was selected because it can be enjoyed by both kids and adults. Prior to the film, a promotional video will be shown to promote 5 Boynton Beach CRA district businesses, including the Boynton Beach Dive Center, Infusion Cafe, Limbo Charters, and Posh Properties. All moviegoers will be entered into a drawing to win gift certificates or special promotions to the featured businesses. Food and beverages will be available for purchase. And as you may know, the 6th annual Boynton Beach Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash is quickly approaching. The Descendants 2 movie was actually selected because of its pirate theme, and also because of the resemblance of the main character in the movie and our featured pirate character that we've used on a lot of our events marketing collateral. The pirate character will make it a special appearance at the Movies in the Park event to further promote Pirate Fest and for photo opportunities with event guests. The 6th annual Boynton Beach Haunted Pirate Fest and Mermaid Splash is only 24 days away. It will be October 21st and 22nd along East Ocean Avenue between Seacrest Boulevard and Federal Highway. We'll have 12 stages of live entertainment, 3 children's areas, 2 food courts, 6 bars, live mermaids, and pirates galore. And I will be providing additional information about the event at the October board meeting. Thank you.
Board Member Romulus has arrived. Is there any informational items that you need to discuss?
At this point in time, I apologize for my tardiness. I do teach and do something else on the side, so I was teaching class, and that's what made me late. So thank you all for burning with me. Thank you.
On to consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Moving on to informational only. Is there any questions or comments?
I just have one comment, Board Chair. I was writing down Seacrest, and it's not just isolated to Seacrest, that storm debris, there's still a lot of home furnishings mixed in with the debris, and they're not going to get picked up. So I think the city has sent letters of notice. I think the code department has knocked on a few doors. I think we've got to step up the program a little bit to get those people to comply so we can get this thing finished.
Next, we have public comments. If anyone that would like to address the board, please step down. Please state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes to discuss.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. First question is, when does the movie actually start? Because you told us the times had changed, but you didn't say what the new start time was. Mercedes. 7:30, thank you. I'm actually coming with a request. I don't seldom do this. I come with opinions, I come with questions, but I don't usually come with a request. As we are moving forward, looking at item 14B, I believe it is, on the agenda today, at this point, I need to request, and I've requested this of Mike before, my family has requested this of CRA a couple of times, we need more land. We need a buffer around our property, our historic properties that are going to be adjacent to the new cottage district. And it looks like you guys are starting to move forward with some ideas. The south side of the property, for whatever reason, when my grandfather built the house 91 years ago, it was a different world, and the house and the driveway are about 5 feet away from the property line. Potentially, the new cottage district is going to end up very, very, very close to our driveway, and we would very much like to have or buy a piece of land, approximately 20, 30 feet, whatever we can negotiate here, on the south side, so we have enough buffer to keep this traditionally historic big piece of land looking like it has always looked. It is one of the few remaining historic buildings in the city. My grandfather and his best friend, Ray Wilcox, built most of the original houses in the city, almost all of which have been knocked down. As you know, there's none left on that block anymore. They were used for fire destruction practice years ago by the prior administration. We desperately need this land. We absolutely do not want to have somebody backing out of our driveway and bang into somebody's house or fence because the property lines are just so close. And like I said, 91 years ago when my grandfather built this house, it was a different world. No one was expecting what we're going to be having, and we do need some kind of buffer. We've gone to the prior CRA administration. I know I've spoken to CRA a couple times now. It has not been a problem over the years. It was never an issue. There was not anything being built. But now it looks like as the city and CRA are moving forward, we need to do something. We have asked for the easement to be transferred over or whatever we need to do. But please take this as my personal request from the family that we need to acquire at least some footage on the south side of our property to make it look appropriate as we move forward, because you'll notice there's a nice buffer zone, in the back, in the front, on the north side, just not on the south side. And it's just the way things were built 90 years ago. The smaller house is like 94, 95 years old. It's just a different time.
Thank you.
Put that in form of a written formal request?
Of course.
Okay.
Okay, do I assume I address it to the CRA board or the CRA directly?
I would address it to the CRA director.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'd also send a copy to the city as well.
Okay, I will, thank you.
Hi, Sherry Johnson, Community Caring Center and Secret Garden Cafe. I want to invite you tomorrow evening. We have our first culinary graduating class. It's a 6 weeks program that we've introduced 10 students into the culinary industry. We ended up with 9 Haitian women. 4 want to go on and become their own business owners, so they're going to join the entrepreneurial program. We have a scholarship for one of the women to go to South Tech. We're working with 4 of them on their GEDs. and we have an invitation to participate at Palm Beach State College. They passed their exam Monday night. It was a verbal exam because written was going to be difficult, so it was a verbal exam. One missed one class, one question, another missed two. So we're just really thrilled with them. They'll be walking away with their knives that they've learned to use and new aprons, and in the kitchen you have to wear headgear. So what was appropriate headgear for them was a head wrap. So we brought in an expert, Kenja, to teach them how to do head wrapping. So they'll be colorful. They'll be showing you some of their culinary cooking skills, and it's at 5:30 tomorrow evening at the Secret Garden, and we hope that you'll come. They'll get their certifications, and then they'll move on to the next program. We're really excited about that. Our job fair was supposed to have been on the 25th, and we've had to move that to October 23rd. It's still a Monday night, 4 to 7 p.m. at Benvenuto's. The mayor is on the agenda to speak. Mac Bernard from the county will be there to speak. I understand he wants to give a cooking demonstration. We've had a guest chef who's opened about 37 restaurants throughout the state. He's over in Weston, and one of the restaurants he opened was in Disney World. He's been personally training some of these women to cook. It's just been amazing. Today they did a high tea and learned all about that and served. So this has been an absolute joy. I hope you come and help us celebrate with that.
Terry, I'd just like to say thank you for all you do and for all the CCD does. You guys are tremendous. And, in all aspects, you're not just one-dimensional. And this program here, I've been part of it from the beginning, watch it grow. And now we're really starting to see the fruits of your labor. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I apologize for being so tired. I've been working the disaster centers most of the day. So thank you.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you were aware, but we had conducted interviews this week, or last week, excuse me, with the police department and their management staff for the third officer for your neighborhood officer program. And I see Officer Rivera, who was selected in the back of the room with Sergeant Deal and Officer Paramore. I don't know if you want it under the public comment, if it's a good opportunity for him to come down and introduce our newest officer for the fiscal year 2017-18.
You limit it to 3 minutes? All right, come on down.
Good evening. Sergeant Deal, Boynton Beach Police Department. Officer Terrence Paramore, Boynton Beach Police Department. And the third edition, the third new officer for the neighborhood officer program is Officer Jivanette Rivera. I'm going to yield my time for her, so I got 3 minutes, right? So she can.
3 minutes?
No,
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Hello, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Officer Jivanette Rivera. Sorry, I'm a little stuffy today. I have some allergies going on. But I've been with the Boynton Beach Police Department for 2 years, and I've devoted my time to doing events with the community. And, it's really what I enjoy doing. I do a lot of mentoring and different things, and I'm so excited for the opportunity to be part of this program. And that's pretty much it. Just looking forward to working with these two gentlemen, which I know closely from my different mentorship activities that I've done. And looking forward to working with you guys, and thank you.
Does she know how to ride a Segway? Have you taught her on the Segway yet?
I'm going to be teaching her soon, yes.
All right, let me know, because I think I should learn how to too as
You
well.
want to take a ride?
Yeah.
We'll take a spin by your house there,
All
Mr. Mayor.
right, wonderful.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
certainly do it. We'll be out on the Pirates Fest on October 21st and 22nd with the Segways and patrolling the area. One of us will be on a bicycle, and then two of us will be on Segways. So you'll see us then. If you see us, give us a we'll flag us down. We'll be happy to let you ride it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Officer Rivera. I was staring at her in the back of the room, and she saw me, and she just smiled. I'm like, I think we need to have her say something. So welcome. Thank you for saying hello, and hope you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Seeing no more public comments and no items for public hearing, moving on to old business. Consideration of the inspection reports associated with the purchase and sale agreement with the Boynton Beach Women's Club for the property located at 1010 South Federal Highway.
Good evening, Board Chair, Board members. This item before you is essentially bringing back the results of our studies and reports that we felt required during our feasibility period under the contract for acquisition of the Women's Club located at 1010 South Federal Highway. There were really no major surprises, nothing that can't be addressed, any that were. The roof, unfortunately, isn't as in good condition as it may look to the passerby. That is something that we'll need to address in the next fiscal year or 18 months or so. Also, there is some activity from termites in the building, and so we would need to do a fumigation. But other than that, the building is in great shape, as I know that you've all seen through different events and things over the years. And really, we were prepared for just about everything that we found. But again, giving the board the right to decide to move forward under the feasibility period, the item is being brought back to you this evening with a request either to move forward or to make some other direction.
I just have a quick question. Is there natural gas to that building?
In the past, there are propane tanks, above-ground tanks, like you might see at an older-style restaurant that served. They had a large Viking stove, burner stove in there, but that is no longer active. It is more of a catering kitchen, so it's a warming kitchen. We are having those tanks removed unless there's other direction by the board to kind of reactivate that kitchen.
But there's no natural gas lines to the building?
No lines, no, sir.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And so would there need to be if we wanted to go through with all the repairs, would there need to be an amendment into the budget?
At this point, I would just recommend moving forward with deciding to move forward with the acquisition. You've approved $200,000 in this year's budget for project. We'd like to begin to start using that on some of the minor elements and then bring back hopefully, a grant application to the state for some assistance as well. And we've got some fundraising ideas on how to generate some potential sponsorships or donorships to start fundraising as the women did for the building maintenance over the years. So I think we're okay on that aspect, just the acquisition at this point. Closing would be Friday the 29th if you so choose to move forward.
Any other questions from the board? May I have a motion to approve to go forward?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the consideration of purchase and development agreement for the CRA-owned property located at 711 North Federal Highway to South Florida Marine, doing business as BZ Woods Properties, LLC.
And Board, the item before you is the continued discussion and negotiation for the purchase and development contract for the CRA-owned property located at 711 North Federal Highway. The item was brought before you in August with the contract provided as backup and an outline of the important terms, which are also included in your agenda cover. The purchase price being $365,000. The Woods are going to be putting a deposit down of $73,000, and the commercial development grant funding assistance is not to exceed $117,000. The development timeline, the closing date would essentially, unless something would change this evening during discussion, October 31st, with the major site plan application approximately, 60 days after you final design approval of the site plan. And then a permit application should be made 90 days after that site plan approval, and commencement construction would be 90 days from permit approval. And their certificate of occupancy is 280 days from the date of construction commencement. There is a reverter clause and a first right of refusal clause. The board approved a second mortgage clause at the August meeting with a 10-year stipulated time period. The first 5 years, there would be no reduction in the amount of the second mortgage protection or lien against the property for the value of the grants and the offset to the value of the purchase price as a kind of a protection for the CRA investment. And then from years 6 to 10, the amount would reduce at 20% a year. That was again approved by the board last month. The purchaser has requested again the board reconsider their first request, which was to allow for a 10% reduction in the amount of the soft second for each year during the 10 years, or to consider holding a no reduction for the first 2 years, and then from years 3 to 10, a reduction of 12.5% in the amount of the second mortgage per year to zero that out at the 10th year. That's one of their requests for your consideration, and the other is a request for you to consider different language or to slightly change the requirement for them to create the 12 positions of employment that their project, they envision their project creating over that 10-year period. That is not something that, these are two items staff could not administratively, make a decision on, so therefore they're being brought back to you this evening. Other than that, the Woods agreed to everything else in the contract. They're here this evening. If there's anything that you'd like to ask them, or if there's anything that they need to clarify, perhaps that may or may not have changed since we produced the agenda item.
I guess a question is for the lawyers. So if they do not have the 12 employment opportunities, what is the recourse according to the purchase and development agreement?
You want the recourse to be, I think they're requesting that it not be a penalty to them, and I think we were having it written, Mike, are you pulling up the exact terms? I'll direct you to where it is in the document if you just give us 2 seconds. What page in the agenda is that, Mike?
That is 10 of 18 in the PDF of the contract document and your attachment 2.
So it's paragraph 20.1, which talks about the default with regard to the project elements, and this would be one of the project elements.
And so this is regarding the reimbursement of $50,800. I'm looking at it, 19.2D. Is that correct? Part of the contract, the renovation grant.
Yes, sir. Item D.
Yes.
That's, the issue is that I believe that's what they said that they were going to, the interesting thing is we do not state what kind of level of employees, whether it be a part-time or a student intern or whatever, and it's more of the outreach that they have done to try to hire these 12 positions. So if they have, 2 for part-time, 2, for student interns, or 4 for interns, and if they're only half, is that everything
I think what we're looking for is, you're correct. At the time that they were selected and we put these terms before you, this was not as clear, and we did not as staff feel like we could alter the requirement in any way without bringing it back to you for your specific direction.
Okay.
If you are happy to leave it open, I mean, there's a benefit to them to leave it open-ended, which would give them flexibility to fill that requirement. But if you feel like you would like it to be more specific, or specific to full-time employees or part-time employees, or of a specific trade or of a specific level, we as staff just felt like we needed to bring it back to you before we would.
I think it's that, the hiring of 12 local employees. I'm going to ask the board, is that okay if they're unpaid or paid? Some of them are unpaid internships?
Well, if I can just jump in here a little
Yeah.
bit. When the two petitioners came before us, that was a big part of the discussion on how many jobs it was going to create. I don't feel comfortable watering that down, however it is. 12 positions was promised to us, 12 positions that we should receive.
And Vice Chair?
Yeah, I kind of, going back, what I can recall, because it was a while ago that, that was a contentious, back and forth between multiple bidders. And ultimately we selected the entity, that got the property based on their proposal and the agreement that we would eventually draft. We accepted a bid of, I don't remember what the exact amount, but it was like $150,000 less. I did not personally approve of that because I felt like getting the money for the CRA and for the taxpayers, the return on our dollar was our responsibility. But to come the night of the approval here and ask for these changes, we accepted an offer, we negotiated terms. I think we should approve the contract as it was designed. To me, it perverts the process even further than my original concern about taking a lesser offer by now hedging on the very promises that individuals might have voted for this for. So it says 12 employees, and employee means someone gets paid, student interns, all that. That's not a job. I don't think that.
But if it's a part-time job, is that your
part-time defined as
20 hours
it's
or less? Yeah.
Part-time is like 30.
30, yeah.
Whatever the definition of part-time, I could be open to that, but 12 jobs. It has to be real jobs, and even as far as the change to the second mortgage clause, I just feel we made an agreement. We as an organization and as a part of the city took an inferior financial deal. Yeah. I don't see how changing any of these conditions now is just fair. It's to the taxpayers, to members of this board who voted in favor of it. Now you're being asked to change your conditions after the fact and at the last second. I think that I would gladly make a motion to approve the conditions as agreed upon and drafted by the CRA staff. I don't personally like changing the deal the second we vote on it.
And I'm looking at the language, and it's the outreach efforts for the hiring of 12 local employees, so that they would have to have the 12 spots available for local employees if someone wants to work and has the qualifications to work there.
I think this is intended to be over the course of their ownership, or the life of the second, or would you want to have a specific time frame associated with it? Obviously, they're in a sense starting a new business. I don't know if they specified a time period, but I certainly am open to the board's recollection of that. If you'd like to place one, you can do that as well.
The only thing that I'm looking at is that it's the recourse is the $50,800. And, do we want to say that after, they're able to hire 6 or so employees at the beginning, but sometimes it takes wires to hire more employees, that we give it on a percentage basis of the 12 of that $50,800? Is the question to the board.
What was the last statement there?
So let's say they get 6 people after their 30 days of the certificate of occupancy, could give them $25,400. And that when they show that they have, I guess within when they show that they have the full 12 employees, then they can get the full reimbursed of the $50,800.
Is there a timeline for those other 6 employees, Board Chair?
It would be up to our discretion. I think that we can probably, I'd say 2 years.
I don't.
But
I
if,
don't
yeah,
agree.
that's kind of,
I think that the pitch that 12 employees were needed was made prior to the expansion, so it was planned and anticipated and calculated, presumably, which means that, other than becoming operational on the new property and getting up and running and providing an adequate time period to find those 12 people, the necessity for 12 new positions has been clearly stated and offered to us. I'd be in favor of giving a fair amount of time, call it 8 to 12 months, whatever. But, we've been told that 12 employees were necessary.
Yep.
So once it's up and running, efforts to secure those bodies and put them in a job.
and then I guess the question is that so the 12-month deadline, then the next question is the percentage, so that if they are able to hire 6 at the beginning when the building is complete, would they get the 50% of the reimbursement, the renovation grant reimbursement?
And do these presumably if it's not defined, or is it defined, if creating 12 positions, those presumably need to continue to exist until date certain, like there can't be a hiring of X amount of employees and then 2 years or 3 years into our 10-year agreement, there's only 5 new positions.
Right. If I were going to suggest a timeline for that, I would suggest it be concurrent with that second mortgage time period, just because after that, it'll sort of be moving on its own. But I think the 10-year period is time. And just listening to what the mayor's putting out there, perhaps it's take the $50,000, 800, and divide it by 12, and there's an equivalency there. So by each position has a worth of reimbursement value when it's shown to exist. Obviously, your decision. I'm just creating language and provisions as we go.
Board Member Romulus?
Just for clarification, because it has been a while since this contract came before us, wasn't there a range that they provided to us, or was it 12 absolutely? I'm fuzzy on the details here.
I'm going to look to Mike to answer that, because I am also not recollecting that particular.
Certainly. Attachment 1 of the item is the backup from the meeting at which the item was presented to you both by Mr. and Mrs. Woods and the other respondent. And let's see.
But it was 12. There was no range, because I see 12 here.
Woods are in the audience again. If this is something you'd like to speak to them directly about, or I certainly will continue to look for.
Okay.
Hi, Mike Wood, 725 North Federal Highway. Yeah, when I presented the 12 employees, just like anything else, as the city grows or our business grows, just because we're, acquiring a 3/4 or just under 3/4 of an acre of property, we're not going to be able to, have 3 lot porters and 3 salesmen and all that type of stuff right off the bat. I mean, it's going to take time to grow. When I recommended that we would have 12 employees, it was like the mayor said, in 2 to 3 years, in 6 to 8 months. I can't just open up the doors and have 12 employees. We have to continue to keep growing to fill those positions, to acquire the salaries for those positions.
This estimate number of jobs, it doesn't say, I use the words estimate.
Mike, you talked at the time about reaching out to South Tech and other institutions perhaps as well and developing some kind of a training program. Is that still something that you see as a viable opportunity, or has that, changed over the course of time?
Yes, no, that has still been on the agenda for talking to South Tech on the outboard lines. That's what South Tech does more of, is the outboard line, which is where we need to continue our growth. The inboard line is kind of like a automotive repair shop versus, type motor. So South Tech is where we plan on going, as soon as we get the certifications, but they're asking for some more land to give us the actual, what do I want to say, the franchise of a Mercury dealership. To be able to sell that, you got to have such a space and so many motors on the premises, and unfortunately we don't have that room right now.
So,
My thought on this, Board Chair, would be what our legal department just told us, that each position has a monetary value, and as they're filled, that's what we release of that money, and good for the up to the years of the second mortgage. I'm comfortable with that.
I'm okay with that as well. And then the second question is, before we move on to the next item, regarding the second mortgage. So I just want to know about the jobs.
Right. So just to clarify with Mike and with
Tara.
you, our attorney, I'm sorry,
Tara.
I can't remember your name right now. Tara. Is this more of we pay out the lump sum, or we pay it out every year? How does this, in essence, work? Or are we determining that right now? Do we?
I would recommend that we would put something in here that says, probably consistent with when we do the release of the second mortgage, when we can put a reporting requirement then that'll just have them send us a report that, proves out that they've complied with the provisions that we need, and then we can release the funds at that time.
I was thinking that if similar to what we do with our TIF agreements, that the purchaser would provide us with documentation of their new hires on the annual date of their certificate of occupancy. So if they hired 2 the first year, they would be reimbursed for 2, and then at the next annual, they would provide 2 more, and now they would release 2 more. It's about $4,200 a job to get you to the $50,800. So if you agree to the 10-year time period of creating those jobs, that's certainly up to the board on that time frame. Whether that be 5 years or 10, we would just ask for verification of those employees. That's one way to do it.
Clarify with me something, because from what I'm reading this contract here, this is a renovation grant, correct?
Yes, that's what we're calling it, the renovation grant.
So help me understand how that relates to number of employees. Are we just making it contingent on the number of employees?
Yes.
I see.
We have all of the grant together, but the other grants have identified programs, but the balance of this $50,800 did not fall into a particular program. It was essentially an additional request by the applicant. So we kept all of the other program grants the same, and then created this additional incentive, if you will, of funds, which is the $50,800. We're suggesting that you can tie the jobs to the $50,000, or rather than the entire amount, which has a different decline. This is an actual reimbursement to.
And then I would just offer that another suggestion, if we go this route, is to define what the employment opportunity would be. So I think you started the conversation about full-time versus part-time. There was discussion about this training program, which could qualify if it, so that's obviously your decision as to what those employment opportunities have to look like to qualify for that funding.
I'll speak up for a little bit. In my opinion, I am okay with the 12 jobs being spread out over a number of years, and just each year with the certificate of occupancy renewal, we would have an update, and with that, we would reimburse based on those numbers of new hires. I am also flexible with the type of hiring, and I would potentially maybe just half and half, maybe 6 full-time, 6 part-time. I don't think it necessarily needs to be all full-time. I'm amenable to the flexibility in the type of employment, but it does have to be paid employment and not a volunteer or intern or any of that sort.
Just for clarification, because I might have just become a little confused, this is a one-time payment for the creation of a job, right? This isn't an annual $50-something thousand.
No, it's one time.
Okay.
The total is annual. To achieve it, it would be, if they achieved it in year one, they could get it in year one, because we're just making it divided by 12, the positions.
Right, so if all 12 positions were filled within year one, they would get the entire balance.
Correct.
But the question is that if it takes them to year 4 or 5 to get to your 12 positions, that after the first year of having 6 or so, they would get half, and then the 7th, then it would increase until the full amount.
Correct.
Okay, I'm fine with that as well.
Okay, and just one last thing for clarification. If they don't reach that 12 number,
Ever?
After
Then they would-
They'd only be reimbursed during that, whatever time period you give them to get the 12 jobs. At the expiration of that time period, if they only achieved 8.
The only issue I'm having here is that when the petitioners came up before us, it was about creating jobs. And now, we got a pot of $50,000 to give out to disperse. So it's not a lot of money, but it was all about jobs. That's what this whole thing was about. That's one of the reasons why I voted for it. They were offering them, So, 12 is 12. Oh, I'd like to make it reasonable. I can't, 12 months, 18 months, they should be up and running by then.
I'm going to go for the 24 months.
Okay, I can live with that.
What was if you broke down that total dollar amount per hire, what was that number again?
$4,233 a job.
So I'd be willing to be flexible and say part-time is acceptable to me, but at a partial reimbursement. So if a full-time hire gets 4,000, what was the number you said?
4,233.
So then a part-time hire should be worth half of that, in my personal opinion. That gives flexibility. As far as the timeline goes, I feel like at most, I wouldn't be supportive of anything beyond 24 months, and even that again is a stretch for me, because I was under the assumption that when we were told that the expansion of this business would create new positions, I thought that they would be done, and that they were anticipating the need for those hires upon getting the new location or the expansion operational. I didn't believe or think at the time, I don't know if anyone else did, that a portion of those 12 positions were estimates based on anticipated growth over an extended period of time. I thought the creation of this new facility would create 12 positions. So timely to me would be 12 to 24 months at most, just in my opinion.
Just to kind of weigh in here, I believe business works just alongside with the way the market works. So, I mean, we as the governmental entity, we have an obligation for our taxpayers, but at the same time, we need to also understand not to put too much pressure on a business owner in thinking that what if a downturn happens, what if a recession happens, we can't hold them necessarily liable to these things just because we expect a certain a turnout. Circumstances may change, the economy may change, so that's why I'm open to because I don't believe we ever asked whether they were part-time or full-time. We just said 12 jobs. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And understanding. So
again, I wouldn't, and I would also tend to disagree with giving less funds for a part-time versus a full-time hire. I believe 12 jobs is 12 jobs, and that's money being put in someone's pocket regardless. So I would stay away from rationing the funds based on what type of employment is given. I think employment is employment, so I would leave the 4,200 or whatever amount that we have allocated per hire as that, and not change it whether it's part-time or full-time.
I'm in concurrence with Board Member Romulus. In addition, I know that people from South Tech are going to school during the day, so they cannot have a full-time job. So that's I'm okay with not having the restriction, whether it be part-time or full-time, but being paid, I believe, is something that is required.
I can't agree to that. There is a difference between full-time and part-time. That's why they're two distinct words, full-time and part-time. So I just don't, there's a difference between creating a position. We talk about it all the time, low-paying and high-paying jobs. We want quality jobs. I think that a full-time position is a quality job. A part-time position is a less quality job because of the potential earnings for an individual. We've already kind of staked out our positions. If anyone wants to make various motions, we could vote. But I'm at a point where, whether it's part or full-time, that's, at most 6 and 6 would be the ratio. I would say part to full. If you hire full-time, you get the full individual allocation of that sum. If you hire part-time, you get half of that. I'll be nice and say 24 months, because again, I anticipated these jobs will be created upon the construction or the opening of the facility. Again, my global concern here is that these specific details were part of the sales pitch. If I came to you and said, I'm gonna do all these things for you, give me a contract, and then right before we sign it, now all of a sudden there's a lot of hedging and uncertainty. If I wasn't sure I could create 12 jobs when I was making a pitch to acquire the property, I wouldn't have said I can create 12 jobs. I'm trying to be honest. And again,
I understand.
The initial issue here is we took an offer that was almost $150,000 less that would have been paid in full in cash by the other person. I could be flexible, but there needs to be some teeth to this. Otherwise, anyone can come in with a letter of intent or through an RFP process, make some promises, and then completely hedge on them at the last second when we're in a position we're not going to turn down the deal, I don't believe, but it's fair to hold people to a degree of what was promised. I'm just looking for a square deal because we already accepted an inferior financial offer. So,
and I'm okay with moving it up to 6 full-time, 6 part-time. But I guess Board Member Casello.
I kind of agree with I have no problem with the 6 full, 6 part-time, but I think they should be paid accordingly. Full-time is the full amount, part-time is the half amount. Mike, I have one more question. There was damage there, obviously, during the hurricane. I guess a window, a couple of windows were damaged. Are we covered we have insurance for that? Is we covered for that, or are we self-insured down there?
We're self-insured, I believe, on that building because the intent at the time when we acquired it was potentially demolish of the building. The front windows are not that expensive, and as mentioned in your cover, once we get a cost to replace the window, we can credit the Woods at closing for the value if they were going to replace the window with a superior window, perhaps, or we can escrow the amount of the repair if they were not and let them handle it during their construction. I don't think there's any reason, unless required by the purchaser, to try to fix it before closing. I think it would just be part of the construction project.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going with this.
Right.
I think we should let construction proceed before we start replacing windows.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was one aspect of it. The other one was changing the second mortgage.
Can I just get a consensus? Because
Okay.
I want to make sure.
All right, so I'm going to have a motion for consensus. Would someone like to make it, Vice Mayor, or Vice Chair?
yeah, no less than 6 full-time positions, with the remaining 6 being part-time defined as a paid position. I don't know off the top of my head, I heard it maybe from the audience, but I don't know if it's accurate. What is the definition of a part-time employee in terms of hours? Legal definition?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I think it is
You want to have
20
a
or 30,
minimum?
but we'll put a minimum,
Put a minimum of what?
32 hours, I think that's 4 days.
So that, no, minimum part-time is normally anywhere from 15, 20. It's, I think full-time is anything 35 and above.
right.
So
Yeah.
anything less than 32 hours would be.
No, but it's also.
But he's saying a minimum, so a minimum of 15 hours.
So it's not that the fact that you're hiring somebody for an hour to get this, I think it's me. But I'd like to say a minimum of 12 hours a week.
I would say, all right, so the motion, 6 full-time, 6 part-time. For the sake of the motion, 6 part-time defined as a minimum of 20 hours. That's a fair compromise in there. Full-time hire gets the full per person allocation, part-time gets the half allocation, and, I get 24 months to have all 12 positions full or filled. And then I guess the last component is if, at this point as it stands, what happens if only 8 people were hired instead of the 12? Something like that. They just don't recoup?
They don't recoup the
Okay.
50,800.
So everything I said, and if the number of 12 positions isn't created by that 24-month period, then no additional funds can be, obtained. I'm trying to find a fair compromise here. Motion, full-time, full allocation, part-time.
Parts allocation with ability up to 6 full-time and 6 part-time. So if he comes with, if the purchaser has 3 full-time and 3 part-time after the first year, they would have 3 full amounts of 4,200 and then 3 at 2,100. Is that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, Vice Chair?
Yes, and then the ability to obtain the rest of it, if they don't meet it in that first year, would be the second year, the 24 months. So at that point, it would be final, whatever positions were created or not.
So the motion before us is 6 full-time, 6 part-time, part-time being 20 hours a week, 24 months to meet that goal.
And with
And part-timers get half the allocation that the full-timers would get of the 4,200, correct?
correct.
Simplified, thank you.
So we just need a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-1. Moving on to the second item discussion was changing the allocation of the second mortgage from after the year 6, removing 20% to year 10 to 10% a year or 12.5% after the second year. I'm okay with the original agreement as well. Is there any other discussion? I'm seeing none, so whatever's in the contract. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Motion to approve the consideration and purchase and development agreement located at 711 North Federal Highway.
So move. Under the conditions and everything we just did.
Yep.
Under the amendment, yeah.
As amended. Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed unanimously. On to item C, consideration of the purchase and development agreement with Heartfelt Florida Housing of South Palm Beach County Community Land Trust, Inc. for the CRA-owned property located at 117 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard.
Yes, Board Chair and Board members, the item before you is consideration of the purchase and development contract with Habitat for Humanity of South Palm Beach County. This is for a piece of property that they submitted a letter of intent for in June, and the proper notices of disposal have been issued, and the item has gone before the City Commission for approval to dispose of less than fair market value. For the City Commission has approved that. The item is being brought back before you for your approval of the contract and execution thereof for completion of a new single-family affordable home within the model block project area.
Yes.
Good evening. How are you? My name is Mohammed Abdal. My address is 181 Southeast 5th Avenue, Delray Beach. I'm the Senior Director of Government and Community Affairs. Just wanted to thank you guys for your generous donation and assist in Habitat for Humanity as we continue to enhance this community abroad. So if you guys have any questions or anything, I'm here to answer those questions for you guys.
My big question is the security for that house. It is in between, I think, a church on Seacrest and some multifamily homes. So I just want to know, is there anything that Habitat is doing, like building a security fence around that parcel?
I can definitely check with our contractor and get back to you guys, and we can communicate with Michael or with your staff as well.
Okay, because I think that you know, the like you said, it is a donation, but anybody that's moving there needs to feel secure on that street.
Absolutely.
Do you have a family in mind for this home already? Is there a family?
So we currently have a pipeline, and our pipeline right now is closed. So the next family that is going to be meets their 500 sweat equity, and they'll go through that. I don't know. We do have a family. I do not know, or can I share that name with right now in the public?
So the process of this is that they put an application, the family with the
Correct.
500 hours sweat equity and all, and they have like a number in mind that as these homes become available, that's how they...
So for an example, it is first come, first serve. We have closed our process. We do currently have in our pipeline roughly about 9 remaining people. So depending on where they are requesting, so if they're requesting a property, if we have out of the 9 people, 3 people requesting Boynton Beach, they have the first dib once they meet their 400 sweat equity, and that is also 100 hours our class. So going from a rental, how you can be fiscally responsible, being a homeowner, as well as donating your time and your services, building other homes on the property.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has been approved. Next, item D, consideration of Second Amendment to the purchase and development with Habitat for Humanity of South Palm Beach County.
Yes, Board, the item before you is a request for a Second Amendment to the original purchase and development agreement between the CRA and Habitat for Humanity of South Palm Beach County for construction of 2 single-family affordable homes on 2 lots previously owned by the CRA. The 2 items requested to be amended in the Second Amendment is to increase the sales price that was originally included in the contract in 2010 of $120,000 so that the contract and the purchase price match up once completed with your approval to $230,000. And also in the first original contract, the CRA had requested that Habitat attach a soft second similar to the item discussed before with 711 North Federal, that in our other down payment assistance programs in the past where we would have a soft second for whatever down payment assistance was offered to the home buyer. In this case, since the land value was donated as the kind of the buy down or the down payment assistance, we had asked at that time for a soft second in the amount of $20,000 to be placed on the property to secure that value. Because the property is now being developed into a land trust format and not a single-family ownership entirely, the need to secure the land value is no longer of issue, since the land itself can never be transferred. That $20,000 value, if you will, is always going to remain protected. So that's their second request. And then also to amend the development timeline from October 21, 2012 to now May 31st of 2018. One of the houses or the lots has a house completed on it already at 310 Northeast 11th Avenue. So one of the two is already built and ready to be sold to a waiting home buyer who's already completed the program as Mohammed described. And the second is to begin construction within, I believe, the next 30 to 45 days, and they believe that they can have that completed by the 31st.
So, Mohammed, one of my concerns is that when we put the properties in the land trust, the land value is no longer part of the appraisal value of the property. And like you said, these are homeowners. They're going to put the homestead exemption in so that the only property can only raise 3% or CPI every year. If there's a $20,000 value to that land, it's almost $160 a year that we are missing out in the city/CRA. Is there something that Habitat can do so that there would be a contract with the land trust so that they would be paying for the missing land value, being part of a nonprofit organization and having that secure?
Absolutely. So I know that our team and our attorneys are currently in the process of discussing this. Once we come up with the proper language and stuff like that, we can bring it back and share it with your staff and Michael as well. So you guys, that will answer all these questions. And we'll do our best to try to get this as soon as possible, hopefully within this week for you guys.
So then the question is, should we be voting on this or until he comes back with that information?
Well, I think we can agree on this subject to whatever they're coming back to us, so that the lawyers can move forward with the $230,000 price.
Yeah, we are requesting if you guys can move forward with this item and we'll come back with the language that we can agree on.
So we can agree subject to the land value. Yeah, because it will be an outside payment from the property trust to the CRA. Or the land trust.
I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with that language solely because of the fact that affordable housing is done with the intention that the land that's being placed into the trust, it's to help keep the price of the house affordable. That way, whoever lives there, whether it's the original owner or whoever gets to move in afterwards, can continue to benefit from the price of that land not being raised and the price of the house not continuing to be raised. So, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with placing that burden now on Habitat for Humanity, which is a great organization that continues to help make homes affordable for individuals.
I understand that, and it's the issue is that we had to rate a fire assessment for the city, and so we have 20% of the homes pay under $200, and so that's why having this having this contract for the land value, because once these are homeowners and they are subject to the homestead exemption, plus what the state legislation may do, I think these homes are still going to be remaining to be very affordable. And we are working with Habitat, making sure that we are able to work with them in the future, because we can't, as a board, not have a budget. So, is the extra $160 a year important? I think for the future, yes, because this is ongoing in perpetuity. And so that's where I would request a motion for having, moving forward with agreement subject to a contract with the land trust for the land value.
Let me just ask a question. I'm not sure how much you can share, but is this the direction that your board and your lawyers or attorneys are moving towards, of making agreement with your partnering cities to do something like this? Is this something that we can count on, or is it just more so kind of talking about it?
I probably would have to take that back to my leadership team. I don't feel comfortable making any promises, to answer that question for you.
Board, if I may, I think that there are two kind of separate items being discussed, and we as staff and legal have discussed this since it being raised earlier this week. The two items being discussed are whether or not the land trust should be subject to paying appropriate taxes on the value of the land that it is currently being valued at zero by the property appraiser. So the only thing that the homeowner of a land trust home pays now in property tax is on the value that the property appraiser establishes for the home. The value of the land, whether that be $8,000, $10,000, $20,000, is deducted from the value of the house. So the land trust as an organization has multiple properties and multiple lots that the property appraiser, as a taxing entity or as a collector, not you're the taxing entity, establishes this formula and activates it. So the second subject being discussed is the sale of the property, or the amendment to the contract to have them go ahead and sell the property to the homeowner and keep the property within the land trust. So what I think Tara and I are contemplating now is that one agreement, one becomes contingent on the other. If you don't have an agreement with the land trust to pay this property tax formula, the contract can't go forward with the homeowner that's about to close, because you're requiring that other issue be resolved
with the land
in order.
trust.
So it might be suggested, and Tara can certainly pipe in, but it might be suggested that if the CRA would like to consider either in the future or a separate agreement or discussion with the land trust or any land trust in the city or the CRA district of trying to create some other formula to actually recoup some of those values, I think that's kind of a separate agreement with the land trust, whoever that may be, because it would affect more than just the one property, because there's 21 properties in Ocean Breeze West that are all part of a land trust where that value has been reduced, and you're not getting tax on one, as mentioned, on a $15,000 lot. It's very minimal, but if you had 70 or 80 lots in a land trust, those numbers start to accumulate. But I believe it's a separate issue than what is being contemplated this evening. A good issue to raise, but I don't know that we could resolve that in time. Now, that's up to Mohammed and their closing, if they can extend the closing to resolve it for this one property. But we have kind of two directions we are going.
Mike, thank you for clarifying that, because that's where I was kind of going with it, where I don't think we should make this proposal tonight contingent on that conversation, because I feel like that's two different things, and we would be hindering the motion of this if we were to try to hinge it on that, if that makes sense, what I just said.
Makes sense, but I'm glad that I was able to discuss with the board what I'm thinking when we're dealing with the land trust in the future. This is an agreement that is way before me on the board, and so I'll withdraw my request for this property, for the land trust to pay the property value, but moving forward, I would like the land trust to pay for the property value, if that's okay with the rest of the board.
Right, okay. And I'd like to see what they bring back based on the conversation that you say that they're having currently anyway.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, Michael, you will be having that conversation to come up with some kind of formula for the overall trust.
Yes, sir. I will, and I want to talk to the property appraiser about how they're viewing these in different communities, because ultimately they're deciding as a property appraiser to remove that value that ultimately is entitled to the county and to the city. So it's an interesting, it's a very interesting point to be raised for land trust. It's a very good discussion to have.
So may I have a motion to approve the second amendment to the Purchase and Development Agreement with Habitat for Humanity of the South Palm Beach County?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Moving on to item E, consideration of the guidelines and applications for the Boynton Beach CRA Nonprofit Organization Grant Funding Program.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. This item was a follow-up item. This was the creation of a nonprofit grant program, because currently the CRA only has grant programs for economic development for the private sector and for-profit entities. Again, this program is developed to address four different things: to inform all interested parties, especially in the nonprofits, of availability of funding and the CRA's intentions. Secondly, to provide transparency on the program and the evaluation. Thirdly, to identify funding based on each fiscal year allocation, having a regular round or cycle of grants, and lastly, measurable outcomes, and to make sure that we have a way in which we can objectively evaluate the performance of these nonprofit applicants. At the August 8th meeting, the CRA Board approved a framework that staff has presented and directed staff to prepare an application and a review process to be brought back at tonight's meeting. The objective, again, with the grant is, one, to leverage funding with others. So the CRA funding is not a lot to fund everybody, but we want to make sure that the maximum benefit is achieved for the dollars that we give. And two, to build capacity so that the nonprofit can seek other funding as well through a more formal process. So attached in your backup material are guidelines, which is attachment 1. Also, attachment 2 through 9 are supportive material for the grant. These include ways in which we can review the application, instructions, form documents, budget, annual report, and even scoring sheets. There are, in these attachments, some language as to the eligibility, what activities are eligible, and specifically it's for programs and activities that are related to economic development that serves and benefits the CRA residents as well as businesses that are located or serving clientele in the CRA district. It also needs to further the CRA mission and objectives and the CRA plan. So with that, the board additionally asked staff to extend the grant process to 60 days to allow for 2 workshops. One that's right now is scheduled on the 23rd of October at 1 p.m. in the daytime, and one on the 13th of November at 6 p.m. We also attach, as requested by the board, a sample flyer that we will have translated in Creole as well as Spanish, which is an attachment 10. And finally, the draft documents are currently pending final review with the legal staff, so there will be some minor changes to clarify to make sure that statutorily we can fund some of these activities. For instance, the administrative costs should be only as it as it associates with the it directly benefits the benefits are received by the CRA. I'm sorry about that. And also to clarify for special events and funding the PR items, it should also be related to job creation as well as training, not just any other special events. So we need to clarify those finer points. To date, staff has reached out to 3 local nonprofit organizations, the CCC, the Women's Circle, as well as the Gold Coast Down Syndrome organization. Those we know of have those economic development programs that we can hope that they'll be interested in the program. There will be regular press releases, ads, social media that we will have a broad range that will be advertised, along with our other economic development grant incentives. With that, I'm here for questions, and that concludes my presentation.
Tui, you mentioned that you reached out to 3 nonprofits. What was their reaction? What feedback did they give you?
Well, the Gold Coast organization was very happy that this was considered. They have more of a boutique type of program where most of their job training is really life skills, but they're hoping to actually develop or coordinate with a co-op of employers that could probably be partnered with them to provide jobs for their clientele. As far as Ms. Johnson, we did forward her all the packet that was previously presented to the board. We met with her, and she was favorable to this. Actually, all of them were favorable in that this allows nonprofit to get some benefit from CRA incentives. And I believe the Women's Circle, I think Ms. Blankenship, she's here as well, so she's from the Women's Circle.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm looking at the 43 different numbers, and then you have another almost 20 different letters of requirements in the part of the application. And so I just want to make sure that this is normal for the amount of funding that there should be requesting, that we're not making it more burdensome than it needs to be to get this sort of grant funding.
So to clarify, some of those numbers are instructions. So you have 3 basic documents. You have the guidelines, which is attachment 1. Attachment 2 is the instruction on how to fill out the form. So item 1, you have to fill out. Yes. So it's
the section 1, section 2, project program information,
those.
Financial information, application checklist, and certification statement. So yeah, that's seems like it's a lot of work, and I just want to make sure that we're making it worth their while to do this.
Well, I believe we will work with them, and we'll make sure that they understand the program, and we'll have regular training sessions year 2 and 3 and so forth as funding is available. But we did make it clear that there'll be some application requirements that needs to be done. We're providing them in Word document and Excel document so they can just fill in the blanks on their own. And we hope after the first year, the second year is just a matter of changing their numbers in the budget as well as the fiscal year numbers. Hopefully the activities, if they're continuing the project and program and it's successful, it's a matter of evaluating, making sure that they meet the projected outcomes that they're asking.
And also, is this also for new programs? And so
Yes.
that it doesn't have to be an existing program that...
Exactly. It's for new program, and the one requirement is from just because you've received it previously, you still need to apply because it's based on fiscal year allocations.
Okay, great.
And the board can add more categories. For instance, the reason it's a little overwhelming because it covers affordable housing, the 4 categories that's in our plan that we can support. Economic development, which is funded this year to a tune of $125,000. You can expand it next year should funding be available or at your discretion to affordable housing, elimination of slum and blight, as well as cultural and recreational facilities, programs and projects.
The application process we have, this is pretty much what we have in place now as far as the application from previous years, right? These are not all new
This
forms.
is new. This is new.
These are all new?
Yeah. The others are economic development for-profit entities.
Okay. Those stay the same?
Those stays the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we expand this program, like it sounds like we're attempting to do here, that $125,000, obviously, we're going to have to talk about that at budget time. Every year we're going to have to talk about that, potentially increasing that.
Yeah, and our intent is to we're off to probably a 1 quarter late start because we don't launch this until October, but our intention is to have a workshop on a regular year, advertise for the workshop in April, have the workshop in April, and then advertise for the grant availability in May so that by the time that you have your budget, September or August, you would know how much or what the interests are in some of the grantees. And also from year to year, you may end up, allocating it for instance, if I give this example just right off the top of my head, Sarah Sims, if you have some entity that would provide programming for youth while you're, going through the Sarah Sim Park redevelopment, you can consider that year as a project that would need to be funded if funding is not available for all categories.
So this does not need to be a 501c3?
They have to be a 501c3 at time of application.
Okay.
And they also become available for other
CRA grants too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Vice Chair, any questions or comments?
No, I'm not going to necessarily question the finer details of the proposal and the rollout. I think that, they put it together and let's see how it goes and from there make the appropriate adjustments if need be.
Chair, were there any items in the number that you saw that you felt you could live without asking for? If you felt that there were, if we're asking for 10 and you thought 8 was sufficient, we're certainly, you're.
Well, that's hopefully, we'll have a survey as well that we can ask for comments from the nonprofits.
And you can amend it every year.
Every year,
If
yes.
you think it's cumbersome, we can just cut down the amount and.
Yeah.
We intend to assist them. This is not something we would just hand to them and have them walk, we're prepared to do that as well this first year.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve?
And can I get that motion with, as to be amended by legal?
Or whatever needs to be legally approved?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion with whatever needs to be legally approved.
Okay. Yeah, I think that works. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Tweety. Thanks very much, Tweety. Thank you.
Moving on to item F, consideration of tax increment revenue funding agreement policy.
Yes, Board Chair and Board members, this item you requested to be brought back before you, really in kind of a formal adoption of a policy. There is no attachment. The policy is as simple as it appears in the agenda cover, that it is the policy of the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency to consider awarding tax increment revenue funding on a case-by-case basis based upon the following minimum criteria. 1, the request is consistent with the adopted Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Plan. And 2, the request is consistent with the Community Redevelopment Act of 1969, Florida Statutes 163.330 et sequence, as the same may be amended from time to time. Tax increment revenue funding is awarded at the sole discretion of the Board of the Boynton Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, and the criteria above are minimum criteria only. The Board may consider other factors or information when determining whether to grant tax increment revenue funding. So really, again, this was written and previously approved in form. We are bringing this back as kind of a formal adoption. If you feel like there's any additional language you want to see added, now would be a good time to do that.
And if I may, just give a little bit more background. The reason for bringing this to you, this is really just basically enumerating the requirements of statute at a minimum level. There has been previous action by previous boards that called into question whether or not you had a policy about very, very specific criteria. So in an abundance of caution, we wanted to have a clear policy that explained that you were going to do it by statute. And the next step would be to come up with more detailed application requirements that would require certain kinds of information that you generally ask for with regard to financial capabilities, pro formas, et cetera, when you get these kinds of requests. So this is meant to be the broad-based policy that gives you the flexibility as the board. The more detailed informational requests will be in an application process that the staff will bring to you in the future.
Well, we ask those questions now, don't we?
You do.
We do.
You
So,
do.
All right.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Next, we have new item G, the purchase and sale agreement for 480 Ocean Avenue.
Ready?
Yep. No, I got
Hi.
stuck a little bit, so.
What's that?
I got stuck with the chair arm.
That's okay. Ken Khalil, 54 Northeast 4th Avenue, Delray Beach, representing Ocean Avenue Pride. I'm here with Mr. Lucibella, one of the owners of Ocean Avenue Pride, and it's regarding the property at 480 that we purchased from the CRA not too long ago. Since the time of the purchase and redevelopment agreement, as you can see by the action that has gone on at the building, we have diligently been pursuing the reconstruction and renovation of that building. It's been with challenges, to say the least. According to the agreement, we have to have our CO, certificate of completion, by September 30th, which is in a few days. It is beyond our control to have that completed by September 30th. We do have final inspections in at this time. And in fact, the city can't complete some of those inspections in time because of, I think, one of the fire inspectors has resigned or moved on or something, so we can't even get a final fire inspection. So we are going to be delayed not only because of those reasons, but because of the recent hurricane that we had that did cause some damages that we're going to have to fix. So it's going to be some time. So we have requested an extension of time. Mr. Lucibella is here to discuss whatever questions you may have and to further discuss what is going on and what the future plans are.
I'll answer any questions you may have.
My quick question is that would it be ready for Pirate Fest, October 21st, 22nd, or?
Well, let's jump back a little bit on that. I know you've all been to the building. You've seen the improvements. For our part, I can tell you that for a $310,000 building, we can document over $500,000 in improvements so far. That's not your issue. We're proud of that. But as my father always said, you can either. The only difference between doing it good enough and doing it right is twice the price. And so we can have it either cheap, right, or quick. Usually you can have two. We can only have one. We could have CO on Friday. That is a possibility. We're ready to go. It's just a fire inspection and final inspection. But even if we do, the reason why we are asking for an extension of 3 months, even if we do, there's additional work that needs to be done there. The roof, we believe the original roof needs to be replaced. So that if we do not get CO on Friday, then we might as well just put in a change order, get the roof replaced. On the building, we're still trying to ferret out who was it that determined that the building was going to be two colors, because there's no reason for that. It should be one color. We've got some people telling us it was required by the city, which I don't believe, and we need to get to the bottom of that. Working with Michael and his staff has been a dream. They've been supportive and directive. Working with the city individually has been an absolute pleasure. I cannot guarantee you that it'll be open on October 21st. I want you to remember that building a large house that's comfortable and useful is pretty easy. It's building the small ones that are tough. The problem that has plagued this building was that it always required a service kitchen. So it was only you were going to cook somewhere else, and you were only going to heat up there, and it's why it's never taken off well. We now have basically a full kitchen there. We still have some work even after CO to get that to the point where Barbara and I are comfortable with it, because we're not going to. We can't have a grand opening there and invite all of you to a restaurant there unless we can hold our heads up high. So we're asking you for 90 days. I'm hoping to be open within a few short weeks, but I can't guarantee that.
Can you explain to me, you say you put an extra $500,000 into this building, other than the kitchen build out, what are some of the other things, and you still haven't touched the roof, obviously, what accumulated to be $500,000?
The roof is a nothing deal. The roof is not a major expense, Commissioner. The sliding, the moving walls, the moving window walls that we did are expensive items. The trusses, the roof over the addition is only 1,000 square feet. I understand that, but sometimes it's the little jobs that will have the biggest cost overruns. I haven't gone through a P&L. I'll be happy to do that with Michael tomorrow if you'd like, and let him know where the money's gone. It's just gone. We just take the next thing, do the next thing. There's been a lot of kitchen equipment purchased, an enormous amount of kitchen equipment. The hood system is very, very expensive there. It never had a hood in that building. So you have all of these things that simply add up.
All right, I'm okay with having the CO before the end of the year, so whatever the last business day of the year is.
Yes, sir. With grateful thanks.
So we need a motion, though.
I'm not comfortable with 90 days. This between the Magnuson House and this old house, this has been since I've been sitting up here, and is still not able to open for whatever reasons. I'm not comfortable giving a 90-day extension. If you're that close, as you explained to us, I'm okay with a 30-day extension.
Commissioner, I think that it's a bit unfair to even compare this to the Magnuson House, which hasn't even broken ground.
I just stated two properties that we've been dealing with.
So when you see continuous work going on here, and you see continuous expenses, we have no desire to have an $800,000 property that is not income producing. Believe me, the onus is on us to get it open, but do you want it open right or wrong? That's the question.
No, it's up to the rest of the board. Do you have any further, Vice Chair?
Optimistically, you said you might be able to open it in a couple weeks. What would that time, if that played out the way you envision it and hope, when would you envision that date being?
As soon as possible, as soon as it's right. As soon as it's right. As I said, Commissioner, we have absolutely no great desire to have a hard asset like that gathering dust. There is much more pressure on us to turn that into an income-producing property than there is on the city. And I think that we've put our best foot forward on this property in the way we've designed it, in the way we've developed it, and in the way we've insisted that it be right. But it's got to be right.
How long have you been in possession of ownership of that building?
This went to... That's not the fair question. The fair question is, when was it approved? When were the permits approved by the city? There's a lot of elements that took place, right? So under construction, it's been less than 9 months.
Right, February.
So, and as you can see, it's been diligently proceeding. I don't think you've had anybody from your staff, from the CRA staff or the CRA attorneys, that came to you and said, we are not in compliance with this agreement. And with the diligence that's been pursued to complete this project. It's not without its challenges.
I'm not going to get into the argument of diligence, because I've driven down by there many times and seen no work being done at all. So we can argue diligence all day long.
But I think that's a product of the construction industry. I think you can take any project, Ocean Avenue, the 500 project I've watched for years.
Sir, you didn't want me to compare the Magnuson House with the old. Please don't compare 500 Ocean to your 2,000 square foot building. So
I'd make a motion for 60 days. 60 days.
That works for me. Board Member Romulus.
I am more than okay with giving the applicant the time that they're requesting. I don't believe, we have the grounds to tell them when or when not to finish, especially with what they're proposing in terms of they want to get it done right. We are here trying to create a downtown that is inviting, that is amazing, that other people make a destination point. We are spending millions of dollars to regenerate our downtown, and this potentially could be one of those landmarks in the downtown. So if they need 90 days, but they promise to get it done within that time, maybe 45 days, then albeit, but I wouldn't want to rush them and then have them come back here and disappoint again, asking for another extension if they're not done. But if they say 90 days and they get it done within 90 days, then even better. If not, then we can go to other recourse. But I believe 90 days is okay, and if they can get it done within that, as per the words of the owner here, then I'm okay with giving them those grounds.
And do you need a motion?
Is there anybody willing to second 60 days?
I'll second that.
All right. So, been a motion and a second for 60 days. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
A.
Motion passes 3-1. All right. On to new business. Consideration of a letter of interest submitted by Tri-Unity Homes for the CRA-owned property located at Northeast 4th and Northeast 5th Avenue, a.k.a. the Cottage District.
Yes, Board Chair and Board members, this item is the receipt and presentation before you of a letter of interest that was received from Dr. Corey Collins of Tri-Unity Smart Homes for the requested acquisition of the CRA-owned properties identified in our plan and as our project, the Cottage District project area, located within the first block of Northeast 4th and 5th Avenues north of Boynton Beach Boulevard. The letter of interest that was submitted by Tri-Unity Smart Homes requests the CRA properties be sold to them for a cost of $10 to offset the creation and development of approximately 30 affordable single-family homes, and the site development costs, hardscape and sidewalk lighting features would also be borne at the cost of and the expense of the CRA. Tri-Unity is proposing to build 3- and 4-bedroom homes in range of square footage between 400 and 1,500 square feet, sold between 120,000 and 180,000. It is also proposed that a portion of the proceeds of the sale, I believe 10%, from each sale would go back to the CRA as a kind of a cost of land offset. In addition, while not necessarily contemplated in the CRA redevelopment plan under the Cottage District project site area, Tri-Unity Smart Homes is proposing or describes construction of a family education center offering training and educational training in the area of medical billing and pharmacy technology, if you will, for high school students, and maybe some limited space for some kind of startup or entrepreneur business space area. Again, in the plan, the CRA contemplated just a single-family home development without a community center or a commercial style development, but that's certainly something the board can consider, and we can work with the city if that's something you wanted to see. There are some other elements of the project that I think staff would agree that we could have received more detail on, but as it is the policy of the CRA when receiving a letter of interest, the letter of interest is brought before you at the earliest possible meeting for your consideration, and under the policy you can entertain or ask for additional information, entertain the letter of interest as submitted. You can simply reject the letter of interest if it's a property that you aren't interested in disposing of, or you can direct staff and legal to prepare a RFP for your consideration if it's something that you wanted to also put out onto the street. Additionally, as you know, under the notice to dispose of the property, if you were to entertain the letter of intent, that 30-day notice would also make available an opportunity for others to respond with interest as well. So Dr. Collins is here if you have any questions. Otherwise, staff is here and legal for any questions you may have of us.
Mike, I have just, what's a 10 by 40 house sell for, or a 20 by 20? That's 400 square feet, right?
Yes, sir.
How much would that sell for?
You know, at $110 a square foot, I would see that somewhere, you know, in the $40,000 range, I would think, if it was a micro home.
All right, let me ask you this. Is 400 square, I can see apartments being 400 square, but a home 400 square feet, is that even practical?
You know, having gone through the Cottage District RFP several years ago, I think we've determined that micro housing is not something that
Mike,
the market.
This would challenge that Little House program they got on TV.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, this is you know, As a letter of interest is submitted, it's simply a concept that's being brought by the producer of that letter of interest. Any matter of these elements would be
Okay, the
massaged
other
by
question
you.
I have,
Yes, sir.
when we talked about the cottage there, didn't we talk about some kind of uniqueness that we wanted to develop in that area? And I don't see it in a 400 square foot house, but with that being said, also, we put out RFP and we didn't get no responses. Correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
So if we're dealing with these kind of numbers and this kind of offer being considered, if we had put some of this language into an RFP, do you think we'd get a better response on an RFP like we did on the Ocean Breeze East project?
At this point, I do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Vice Chair.
Yeah, first, with regards to Board Member Casello's concern about the size of the house, I often joke and muse about my desire to eventually acquire a trailer in Briny Breezes because I want to live next to the ocean. So respectfully, there are definitely people who wouldn't mind living in a small unit. I'd agree. You know, we literally just established a process with regards to letter of intent. I think that we should go about crafting an RFP. That Tri-Unity obviously would be more than happy to submit an offer to, since they're interested in the property. I don't recall in the last iteration of the RFPs what did we propose the land price to be at? Did we offer to give it away for free in the RFP, or did we put a tag on it?
We did not put it, we simply asked for kind of any and all proposal with some parameters. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, in the December, January, after the results of our last RFP, staff has held several meetings with developers, including Dr. Collins, who are interested in the property and gained a lot of knowledge, and I've shared that with you individually in our meetings about the type of product that they felt was more worthy of their investment and speculation. So I think that an RFP crafted under the guidelines of the Heart of Boynton plan within a district within this area plan could generate some interest. I'm very excited about it, especially with the town square potentially on the horizon.
And one or two more questions. One, this was Susan. This was the property Susan was referring to earlier with regards to her easement that she was.
Yeah, this is the project site area, yes, sir.
So I'd want to make sure that whatever we intend to do with a potential RFP or however we proceed with this, that we give consideration to that, yes, and look into that prior to making a decision. But yeah, again, I'd want to go to RFP. I don't know how, obviously everyone wants kind of startup space and training facilities and things like that, but I'm concerned that's becoming a paint, a coat of shiny paint that you put on any proposal to entice, governing bodies to say, oh, that sounds great, which it does, but, it has to fit and has to be relevant to the area, and I think that we were looking for housing, unless we're talking about fronting Seacrest, which is a different story, but I'm all about setting an RFP in place. And if it's given the land for free, I love the idea that we would recoup 10% of the sale price of the properties. That would be nice, because then we would eventually, you could calculate that out based on the estimated sale price to see if, that would be what the land cost was to them, was that 10%. I could see. So just, yeah, I'll stop talking, but I'm in favor of crafting an RFP to allow for some competition to come in.
I actually would like to have the Dr. Collins come and speak a little bit about this. I don't know if you've approached the board regarding your idea and vision, so can you just explain a little bit more, what made you have the initiative to put this letter of intent? And I really appreciate you showing the interest of the property, and look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thank you. What started my interest actually was riding by that property for about the past 2 or 3 years and seeing nothing on that property, and it just sitting there. I don't necessarily live in that particular area, but I'm in that area quite a bit as I attend church in that area. So going by that property on a pretty regular basis, 2 to 3 times a week, it was just an interest of mine. So the 400, to address the 400 square foot, that's, it's just not a house that I would consider. But when I looked at the definition of cottage, if you're looking at cottages, those are small, simple homes. That's just the simple definition. Would I want to live in a 400 square foot? Absolutely not. But, you know, based on the definition, that's why I put it in there as an option, if that was something, because when I initially introduced the idea, the homes were up to about 1,500 square feet, so somewhere between 900 to 1,500 square feet. But if you wanted something smaller, definitely we can produce a smaller product.
So the thing that I have is that it's kind of a little bit premature in the sense that there is the community caring center there that they're looking to move their property. And then the other thing that I guess I really haven't spoken to the board that I want to speak to is that there's a lot of vacant land in the heart of Boynton Beach. Most of it's owned by the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. And so I want to know if the board is okay with, you know, when we're drafting this RFP to get the approval from the Palm Beach County Housing Authority so that we can show all of the vacant land in the CRA's heart of Boynton District, so that it is not just we're piecing the whole CRA together, that we can actually, you know, infill all of these vacant lands and all these homes that people are just waiting for someone to develop. And so that's kind of what my vision is because there's too much vacant land, just not in this one parcel. I mean, the CRA spent a lot of time and money to get this together, but there is other areas. And so, you know, it's almost like, you know, could you expand upon your idea for other areas in that community that I'm sure you'd be willing to look at if we can get the approval from the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. And so I'm also in the that we draft an RFP for this, and I think what I'd like to see is that if the CRA could reach out to any of the other vacant property owners to see if they would want to have their property in that RFP. Not that they would get the land for free, but it's almost the sense that you can build a bigger, better project so that we are doing the infill so that it is a complete neighborhood moving forward. And that's kind of what my goal is.
And the other piece of that, I know it's a nice, pretty paint piece, but the educational part was for people in that neighborhood. And the pharmacy technician, I'm a pharmacist by education. So I know the value of having a pharmacy technician degree when you're looking at $20, $25 an hour for having that an employee or a person who lives in that area for that, as well as medical billing. And these are classes that I teach currently. So that's why I also added that piece in. Definitely something, hopefully, that would help the project.
Actually, the problem that I have is that the zoning aspect of it. So it's like you can have a community room for the cottage district, but when you put it for the commercial aspect of a teaching school, kind of like a preschool, you need to have certain zoning, unless it's a home-based preschool. And so that's kind of where, I don't know if the board wants to have that sort of retail commercial aspect in that single-family area. You know, I think what I was speaking with Career Source, and what I'd like to do is, you know, use the CRA property on Martin Luther King. I know that we have money in the budget for that, and so if we can get some sort of school or some sort of activity, commercial, you know, the CRA does have commercial land. That's also one of your goals, to have that sort of building. So not necessarily just in the neighborhood, but maybe a half mile to a mile away.
Okay.
Also, the Ocean Breeze East project, the center, you know, the area that's being proposed there might be an excellent opportunity to incorporate some of that into that multifamily complex training, you know, just
right. And so, I mean,
great opportunity
but that's as a developer has those rights first. And so the CRA has, I know that we just bought the northeast property along Martin Luther King and Federal, and we have some. And so we have some other commercial properties that I'd like to see that, whether, you know, it not be maybe it'd be a temporary building or a permanent building, but something so that we can move forward with that sort of educational aspect. Okay, is there any more questions for Dr. Collins? All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Susan Oyer, 140 Southeast 27th Way. If you guys are going to move to an RFP, then I think I need to remind you guys that we're asking to buy a piece of the property, and maybe you want to figure out or wait on the RFP till we've done something about the disposition of a buffer zone around our property, if that's a consideration.
We need something in writing.
Yeah.
So
we'll get you that in the next couple days.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, but I didn't want you guys to start voting for an RFP without dealing with this. Okay, I'm just checking. Thank you.
Seeing no more comments. Oh, Vice Chair.
Yeah, so I just, unless there's further comment, I'd offer a motion to direct staff to develop kind of, just like we did with the Ocean Breeze East parcel, develop a kind of RFP criteria of all the various aspects for us to eventually vote on one by one, and then get that RFP out to market.
Okay. And I guess I'll ask about my idea of reaching out to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority for their single-family areas within the CRA and any sort of vacant property owners, just having that sort of announcement so that we can, put this as almost like an anchor so that we're calling out to the development community to start building affordable homes within the CRA.
Yes, sir.
An excellent idea.
Just for clarification from our attorney, what I'm understanding of the rule that we put in place is that if additional letters
You
are
have three
received-
options tonight. You can choose to accept the letter of intent and then do the advertisement, in which case if a second interested party showed up, then we would automatically put it up to RFP, but you are free under the policy to go ahead and do an RFP tonight.
I think, we'll reject the letter and then move to, we got one more person.
Hello, good evening. Brian Fitzpatrick, 409 Northeast First Street. I would just recommend that you not vote to put out an RFP on the Cottage District right now until, I think one of the prime reasons that no responses came back last time, unfortunately the Community Caring Center, while it does some good things in the community, it is kind of causing blight, in that neighborhood, So putting out an RFP again while the Community Caring Center was still there, still in business, you're going to, why don't we wait until you're relocated? Secondly, I did want to talk to you about the property in Cherry Hill. A number of years ago, after about a half a dozen attempts contacting the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, I did receive a phone call back to them. And the individual I spoke with told me, it's true, years ago we were planning on redeveloping that property after they demolished the public housing complex that was there primarily on Northwest 12th and 13th. He goes, now, this was maybe 5 years ago, we are interested in selling it. I passed that information on to, I believe it was the city manager's office, and what they've done with it, they obviously haven't closed the deal, so I would recommend that we go back to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority and attempt to purchase that land, and thirdly, I know I spoke to you a number of months ago, maybe half a year, about creating the Boynton Beach Housing Authority, and I know it's a very complex, not like going to Office Depot and getting a contract and bam, we're in business, but this is so important to bring tens of millions of dollars a year in, year out to the city for housing, that I would recommend. I know everybody's busy right now, with the Town Square project and everything else. If we have to hire a consultant to advise the city on how to go, what the steps are to create a housing authority, this is not something we can wait on. If we blow this, and Trump shuts us down, or whatever, if the money goes away, if the money's there now, we got to pursue this, because this is something that's going to be with us once again. Look at what, Delray Beach, Boca Raton, West Palm Beach, Pompano Beach, what they have all done, and they all have housing authorities. I mean, just crazy advances in each one of those cities, and, time and time again, here we are giving away talking about giving away the Cottage District property for $10, a lot. I mean, that's crazy. Hold off. Let's get moving on that housing authority, all right? I mean, please. Okay.
Just for a point of clarification, you weren't suggesting that the Community Caring Center was contributing to the blight of that area, were you?
Well, unfortunately, it's like...
The answer is no, right?
Just say no.
The answer is no.
Thank you.
It's a variance in a residential area, so it is not congruent with all the remaining properties. Is that what you're talking about?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Excuse my rough way of phrasing it. Anyhow, thank you very much for your time.
All right. So moving forward, I think we're okay with not accepting the letter of intent. The question is that do we want to do a first preliminary, trying to form our own housing authority for the city? I don't know if that's, we looked in that at the CRA Board, and the City Commission really hasn't moved on it at all. I don't know if the City Commission is going to move on it. But as for what we can do as the CRA Board is contact the Palm Beach County Housing Authority, and I think that's kind of, and the vacant land property owners surrounding that are in the CRA, so that we can move forward with not just a Cottage District RFP, but having a component RFP of all the different area, available land to build single-family homes.
I agree that Mr. Fitzpatrick there, that maybe we should explore the possibility of a housing authority, whatever that details, and I don't have any idea what that entails. But maybe that's a viable option that somewhere down the line that we can look into.
Absolutely, and I think we'll put in, ask the city commissioner to put it on their future agenda item.
We'll have to ask a commissioner.
We'll have to ask them.
Because we can't discuss it now. But I would like to have the CRA staff move forward with talking to the Palm Beach County Housing Authority. I think they do have a new executive director, and also reaching out to any of the vacant land property owners to see if they're interested in being part of this, I guess, I wouldn't say massive, but big.
Board Chair, I know it's a separate entity up there, the Housing Authority and all, but maybe that if you have a contact with one of the county commissioner or a couple of county commissioners to...
You need to speak to the governor, because he's the one that appoints them.
I don't have that privilege. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see what I can do with the governor then. He's got, all right.
Get him on speed.
I think we had, if I heard correctly, we had a motion, but I don't think we had a second, because I think the mayor wanted to add the Palm Beach County Housing Authority aspect to it. So if Vice Chair Katz is willing to amend his motion, or we can just vote on his motion and have that be a separate discussion. But we need a second to the motion, or it dies.
So it's, regarding your motion, Vice Chair, do you want to have first a study of all the vacant property before we put out the RFP, or do you want to move forward with the RFP as more sooner than later?
I think I view them as two distinct, one motion and then one direction to staff. I fully agree that, in lieu of recent revelations about the Housing Authority and their inability to do their job, I think it's an opportune time for a energetic CRA like ourselves to try to go to them and basically say, give us everything you have or whatever you're willing to give us, because we have a good relationship with Habitat. We have people willing to come in and build affordable housing. I think, that their possession of our land, the land within our city has done nothing. As people say, it's been decades that the Housing Authority has not acted on those properties. So I'd want to keep my motion for option number 3 to craft an RFP for this particular parcel, because it seems to be large enough to kind of sustain itself. And then I would absolutely entertain, directing staff to look into the properties that are owned by the housing authority, and through whatever lobbying effort we could do as a board, try to get as much of that property as possible, and like you said, bundle it so it's not Habitat building one house at a time. It's we have 17 parcels. Who wants them all? If you're willing to. So I like the idea. I just want to. I see them as two separate engagements, I guess.
Yes. No,
So
that
the
was
motion is just option number 3 for this particular one to go to RFP.
So you're saying to put them together or
No, keep them
separate? Okay.
I have a question before we, Mike, what is the progress on the community caring kitchen and their move out of that current building? What is going on with that? Or how soon can we expect that property to become free and potentially the entire block to be freed up? Is this something that's within our preview of the next couple of weeks, months?
I would like to be able to bring back something no later than November meeting, but if not the October meeting, on the greatest optimism that you would be able to have an update on where they are with our offer to provide if you remember the last kind of where it is now is that we offered to provide an additional a relocation site and purchase their property. That is kind of still in their corner to respond. Without any kind of official response, I don't want to.
Oh, no, of course not. I didn't know that's where we still were.
But I don't know that we're still kind of in the offer kind of evaluation stage. But we would clearly and most assuredly like to have that on a simultaneous path as any type of development opportunity for a cottage district. I think it'd be very good to identify concretely what they're going to do to be able to provide the development community with some assurance that there's a time frame that they can work with as well. So you're absolutely right.
That being said, I'm not ready yet to move forward on an RFP because as Mr. Fitzpatrick mentioned earlier, that property does kind of put a hindrance a bit on that block. So I would wait till we either have a more concrete offer on the table from them regarding what's going to happen with that property, and potentially once we acquire it, then we can put out an RFP that would include the entire block rather than leaving that parcel out because we don't know what it stands. We've put out an RFP in the past and got nothing. I wouldn't want to repeat that process and have nothing come back again. This letter of intent here is on the table. We can just reject that and wait and see, or we could potentially just accept them. But I'm not really in the favor of doing another RFP and possibly coming back empty-handed again.
I'm also in that sense is that it's not ready for the RFP because we still have that last remaining parcel to finish before we have that full project. As much as we think we can get.
I'd be willing to hold off on an RFP until we get some kind of concrete information what the Community Caring Center's plans are, and before we put off on an RFP. I would have no problem with that.
Okay. So
but at this time, I am okay with rejecting this letter of interest.
Yeah. Do you need a motion to reject?
Yes, because Vice Chair's motion died, so we just need a new motion.
So, Board Member Romulus.
In the sense of motion to reject the letter of interest? Okay. Yep. I move to reject the letter of interest.
Do I have a second? All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. And then I guess my request to have staff move forward looking at the vacant property owners within the CRA to see if their level of interest to being part of an RFP for a single-family home builder to come here. That being said, is that these properties that are not government-owned, that are privately owned, does not have to be affordable housing, but they can be market housing. And it's kind of in the sense of that they'd be, by pooling the property, the land together, they would be getting a better rate than each selling their own parcels separately.
I don't know if that's a slippery slope we want to get on. bundling people's properties.
Well, for my thing is that I don't think it's going to hurt to ask, because right now these vacant properties in Cherry Hill have been vacant for decades.
The vacant properties, I have no...
Yeah, I'm not saying,
You're not saying something with a structure on it?
No, I'm just always
okay.
looking for the vacant property.
Oh, okay.
I would agree with that consensus, or
All right.
that.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of having staff go to any available kind of either vacant or dilapidated properties and see if we can't get in cheap and be able to turn that land over to potential builders.
And I'm okay with going both ways, whether it's affordable or market. I think just a better stock of housing is we're in good need of that in District 2.
And then also, that includes the Housing Authority.
I think we look at something toward the beginning of next year, in January. There's plenty to do between now and then along the lines that you've been thinking. We're always working on that as staff, so this is great. Appreciate the direction.
And I'd also, just at the direction of the board, even though with the uncertainty over the community care center property, I would hope or ask for a discussion on the parameters of a potential RFP, just so we can knock that out of the way. I'm not saying issue an RFP, but if we have that discussion about, do we want micro units, single family, cottage, et cetera, if we get those details out of the way, then when the community care center issue clears up, it's literally just a matter of bringing that back, saying authorize the conditions. I think there's no harm in discussing it. I wouldn't want to put it on the market, obviously, as the board indicated, until we were ready to, but I wouldn't mind having a discussion about it just to get it out of the way, because
you want it next month?
Yeah, sure. If there's nothing pressing on the agenda, just a discussion about the potential details of what we might envision the cottage district, if that's what it's.
Just in defense of staff, next month's meeting is only a couple weeks away, given the hurricane delay. So Mike, I'm speaking on your behalf,
November
but
was on
just
my tongue, but only because the agenda actually is going to the CRA Advisory Board Friday, so it would be in order to give you.
So that extra day is not enough. All right.
I think really to be able to give you a really well-rounded item to discuss, and to be able to even maybe have some information on.
So
discussion.
you'll put it on the future agenda item.
No, yeah, that's great. I intend to do November. That's super. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why she's defending you.
She's a good attorney.
Yeah. All right. I think we're finished with item A. Moving on to item B, approval of the full year 2017-18 Boynton Harbor Marina Dockage Lease Agreement.
Yes, Board Chair and Board members, it is our annual time for discussion on the renewal of your dockage lease agreement, and that being 4 different documents along with a slip rate. You have before you legally reviewed and revised documents for the fiscal year 2017-18 dockage lease agreement, rules and regulations, dockage lease agreement for multiple vessels, your safety accessory addendum, and the transient dockage agreement for your approval, as well as approving a slip rate. We increased the slip rate last year from $16 per linear foot to $18 per linear foot, and prior to that we had not had a rate increase for 4 years. Looking at the comparison for our facility and other municipal facilities, we are very competitive. We're not on the high end or the lowest end, but I think...
What attachment is that? Where do I find that comparison, Michael?
Sorry, I don't see it attached. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was looking for that.
Yes, I'm
we
sorry.
had that last year. I would have liked to see a comparison. So we are upping our rates this year from...
No, I'm offering a suggestion not this year to increase.
Okay, so we're staying
the same, but
Okay.
but considering that for next year, trying to stay at 2 years at this new rate.
Okay.
That would be our staff's recommendations based on the findings that we're very similar. Not much has changed because of the market. It's an industry that is not on the forefront like commercial retail would be. So we have the slip rate to approve and then the documents that are attached, as well as approval of continuing our fuel discount program to the tenants as well.
Mike, you said we're not on the high end, or we're not on the, where are we? Just
Yes, sir. That's okay. Sure. I'm happy to. Sure.
We're on the low end?
We're seeing rates of other municipal live aboard, which we are not, in the $22 to $19 to $22 a foot.
Just let me ask you this. With the $1 million improvement we just made from the marina, with the banana boat doing another $1 million, the marina is vastly improved.
I agree.
Aesthetically anyway.
I do agree.
Wouldn't this be the time to, if we were going to raise a rate, wouldn't this be the time to raise a rate? And I know it has really nothing to do with the slips, per se, but the aesthetics of the whole harbor.
Well, I mean, there's no question a strong case can be made that the master redevelopment plan for the marina is completed. Our years at 14 and 16 and only 1 year at 18 are very well documented in favor of the tenants. Our fuel discount program. We are trying to implement this year the requirement for them to produce a trip log, which will document the number of trips and the number of people that each of these commercial vessels are entertaining throughout the year, so that we can start building an economic development scenario between our municipal marina and our active commercial marina, and the number of people and the number of trips that are generated out of those 18 slips, so that we can start to tie a benefit in the form of a rate increase or establishing a rate to say that 15,000 people or 10,000 people last year came through this marina. Just again, trying to build that return on investment for the CRA, why we're offering the discount, why we're offering this rate, to try to encourage our businesses to stay active because of the additional trips and attraction that they are generating in addition to the 2 restaurants. I don't think you can find a finer marina on a prime corner that we are on. Those vessels are seeing hundreds of thousands of people a year go past their vessels. So whether $1 a foot or some increase moderately like that would upset them, I can't tell you, but we struggle with that, I think, as staff, on trying to keep competitive and offer a business entity a slightly different rate than we might if it were a privatized marina. But that's certainly up to the discretion of the board. Overall, the dollar a foot won't generate an extra $100,000 worth of income to us, but it would certainly increase our annual return and expense offset.
Do you have that number, what a dollar increase would do?
I do not. You can wait until October. I mean, you can wait until October if you'd like to.
So it's something we can table till October?
Sure.
And have that discussion then? And you could have that comparison chart?
Absolutely. I apologize for not having that level of detail for you.
Board Member Ramos, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then my 2 other questions
They'll be on a month-to-month at that point, so that's
what is the recourse for not having the trip log?
It would be a violation of the rule and regulation, as if they were violating any other type of rule or regulation.
So it's almost, they could be kicked out for not having a trip log.
Or you can find some type of late fee penalty, which is fine.
I prefer a late fee penalty.
I don't know that we would exercise that.
Because I feel that we would exercise a late fee penalty or a penalty a lot better than kicking someone out for not, because they might not want to have the trip log, and so I'd rather have them that opportunity to pay a penalty. And then, are we currently full at our marina?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Minus 1 slip. With waiting, we have a waiting list for that. Soon to be filled. And you understand why I am recommending that we try to implement some form of required counts coming back. It's very similar to your economic development programs and our social media program, where we're trying to identify what effect that free advertising is having on the business. So what effect is this marina, this $26 million investment, how does it relate to the very business entities we're trying to assist? Otherwise, we wouldn't even have that, right? We would just have this great marina. So I think we need to try to find that tie. There are other marinas, for instance, the Riviera Marina, that actually charge the tenants not only a base rent, but a per head, per trip a fee. So if they have 6 people on their vessel, they pay a $6 a head fee. So that's an additional $36 for that trip to the CRA, or to that particular municipality. So this idea of municipal owned commercial, not the liveaboard where it's just residents living on their sailboat, but where you're trying to generate an economic development benefit for the area, I don't think it's unusual to start requesting from your tenant some type of reporting back. We're looking for that from all of our participants. I think it's very, very reasonable.
Maybe we could start charging for like carry-on, like they do in the airlines. Just saying.
Number of trips to the restroom, what have you? Yeah.
All right.
So just to clarify, and Mike, if you could just make sure, when you bring this back in October, that we have a little bit more reference in terms of, I think last year we had it where you had the surrounding marinas and
Yes,
what
we
they're
have.
charging annually. Do
Yes.
we charge a seasonal and a monthly rate too?
We charge just an annual rate.
Just an
We
annual?
don't have a transient. We want full-time tenants, so we don't have a month-to-month tenant. We do have an overnight, so if a vessel's traveling from Maine to Fort Lauderdale and they make it to our marina at 6 o'clock, they're able to shore up at the fuel dock for a minimal fee per foot. I think it's $2.50 a linear foot. Just for overnight. They're restricted to a certain amount of time, like a 24-hour period. They have to pay by credit card advance. That is our transient dockage agreement, which we have as a policy in the document now. Over the years, we've tried to become more efficient and certainly protect ourselves as an entity with these various, through our legal counsel advice, to these various agreements. Again, just shoring up our operation. But I'll have the comparable analysis, and I'll have some scenarios on rent increases and how that return shows to you.
Yes,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you very much.
So motion to table until
Next meeting?
Until they said not next meeting, but the following.
Can you get it in October?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Motion to table to next
Thank you.
meeting.
Do I have a second?
I apologize.
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item has been tabled. No reports from the CRA Advisory Board. Any comments? Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Board.